morning, everyone. How's everyone feeling today? You're feeling great. Okay, have you had your breakfast? You did. Okay, that's very good. Okay, let's start our class for today, shall we? Alright, before we start our lesson, I have a very interesting picture to show to you first. And I am sure you all will like it. Alright, what is the picture? Alright. Ta-da! Alright. What did you see from the picture? So what do you see? What you see is our Disney characters, right? Or Disney princesses. Alright, did you see your favorite character in the picture? Okay, great. I see my favorite character in the picture too. Alright, let's talk about these characters more, shall we? Alright, so I'm pretty sure every one of you have at least read the story or watched the movies, right? So if yes, after reading the story or watched the movie, what did you learn from the story? Or what did the character have taught you? Okay, so anyone want to tell me? Aisha, yes? Mulan. Okay, what did you learn from Mulan? Okay, great, that's good. Okay, Mulan is a girl who is very loyal, very brave, and true. She taught us that anyone can be a fierce warrior, just like her. Okay, anyone else? Najwa, okay, Najwa? Ariel. Okay, Ariel is my favorite character too. What did you learn from Ariel, the Little Mermaid? Alright, true. Okay, Ariel, the Little Mermaid, she desperately wanted to experience freedom and explore the human world. So what did she do? So she worked for it, and at the end she got to marry the prince. Alright, what did Ariel teach you? So Ariel taught us that if we were to give up to challenges, we would never reach our dreams. So if we try our best, we can succeed. Alright, now that we have talked about the Disney characters that have taught us moral values, okay, we can learn valuable lessons from these characters. That's the power of storytelling, the ability to tell a captivating story for others to learn moral values from is one of the things that makes us human beings extraordinary. It's why we tell stories at all. It's how we connect. It's how we learn moral values from. So when you write a story, you can inspire other people to write too. Don't you want to inspire other people? Okay, don't you want to write your own story? Of course, we want to write our own story, right? Okay, amazing. So, in order to tell a story, what do we do? What can we learn? In order to tell a story, for today's class, we are going to learn on how to write a narrative essay. Great. For today's class, we are going to learn on how to write a narrative essay. Teacher, what is a narrative essay? Okay, narrative essay is where you would tell a story. So the story that you tell is usually most of the time is from the author's point of view. It's from the writer's point of view. Okay, so now that we know what the narrative essay is about, how do we write a narrative essay? Well, to start off, you can start by thinking of an idea to a story, or it can be from your own experiences, something that happened to you recently. For example, when you were coming back from home and you saw a dog, and suddenly the dog started chasing you. Okay, or something mild. You went to a trip to the beach, to a family, and you want to tell that story to your readers, right? So that way your story is more raw and authentic. But teacher, what if I don't want to tell the story from my own experiences? If you don't feel like telling about your own experiences, no problem. You can create your own characters and tell the story from your own point of view, or where you as the main character, or from another person's point of view. Whether the story is true or not, it doesn't really matter as long as you're telling a good one. Okay, but teacher, why do we need to know how to write a narrative essay? What for? What can we learn from it? Okay, why we learn how to write a narrative essay? The purpose of a narrative essay is about telling stories to your readers. It's about making a point for readers to understand and making the readers see why your story is important to share. Okay, that's why we learn. That's why today we are learning on how to write a narrative essay. Something new from what we have learned early on from our previous classes. Now, to help you understand better, I am going to help I am going to distribute an example of a story, an example of a narrative essay, and we are going to read it together. Okay. Okay, did everyone get their copy? Okay. Before we start reading, I want you to focus and pay close attention to the details in the story. Why? Because later on, after we finish reading, I have a few questions for you to answer based on the story. That's why I want you to focus. Alright, let's start reading the story, shall we? Okay, 1, 2, 3. One day, my friend Rosie and I decided to go for a walk in the mountains. The sun was shining when we set off, but later the weather changed. It was very foggy and we couldn't see where we were going. Soon we were lost. We didn't know what to do. Then I remembered I had my mobile phone in my bag. I tried to phone my dad, but my phone wasn't working. By then, it was getting dark and we were cold and frightened. Suddenly, we heard the sound of a helicopter. We couldn't believe our luck. It was coming to rescue us. Everything was alright in the end, but we learned our lesson. Next time, we'll check the weather forecast before we go for a walk again in the mountains. Alright, did everyone focus? Did everyone pay close attention? Okay, did you like the story? Right, is it scary? What if the same thing happened to you? What would you do? Would you cry? Yes, I think I would cry too. I think it is pretty scary. Alright, now that we have finished reading, what I want you to do is that I want each of you to get into pairs and discuss on what and who is the story about. How did it begin? What happened in the middle? And how did it end? I will give you 10 minutes to do the test, and after you have finished discussing, we will discuss the answers together. Okay? Starting now. Alright, time's up. Okay, did you answer? Did you manage to answer all the questions? Okay, so let's discuss the answers together and check how much you get correct. Okay. All right. The first question: what is the story about? What is the story about? Okay, the story. Does anyone want to tell me the answer? All right, Najwa. Okay. What is the story about? All right. The story is about two friends who got lost in the mountains. Right. Okay. Did anyone get that correct? Did everyone get correct for the first question? All right, great. So for the second question, who is the story about? Who are the main characters in the story? Right, I, the author or the reader, and Rosie and her friend Rosie, right? Okay, so the second question is then, who is the story about? So the third question, how did the story begin? How did it begin? What was the beginning of the story? All right. Okay, what was the beginning of the story? Aiman, you want to tell me the answer? Alright. So the answer is I. The story began by I, the author, and Rosie went to a walk in the mountains, right? Okay, that's how the story began. Right. What happened in the middle of the story? As they were walking, what happened after that? Alright. Because the weather changed, it got very foggy, right? And then got very foggy, so they couldn't see where we were going. Because of that, they got lost, right? That's what happens in the middle. Okay, and then the mountain got dark, right? And they got dark and cold, and the two friends got really frightened. Okay, so that's what happens in the middle of the story. Okay, now next, how did the story end? How did it end? What happened to the two characters? Right, they heard a helicopter. So and then they realized that the helicopter is coming to save them. All right, so that's how the story ends. Did everyone get everything, the questions correct? All right, good. Okay, now that we have read an example of a narrative essay, don't you want to learn how to write a narrative essay? Don't you want me to tell you a step-by-step on how can you write a good narrative essay? All right, let's do it. Right, before that, we need to open your notebook, English 1, and copy what I've written on the on the whiteboard while I explain. Why I want you to copy this on your notebook is because the next task that I'm going to give you is for you to write a narrative essay on yourself. So these are the step that is going to help you will be going to as a guide for you to write your narrative essay. All right. So what I've written on the board are step by step on how we can write a good narrative essay. All right. Step 1. So let's start with step 1. Think of an idea. So what does think of an idea means? Teacher, what does it mean? Okay, before you start writing your story, so you can start right away writing your story by creating a draft. Creating what the story is about is going to make your story more clean and more organized, right? So step 1, think of an idea. Think of an idea for your story and make notes on the side, such as who is it about? What do you want the story to be about? Do you want the story to be about you or somebody else? Okay, so the idea can be based on your own experience. For example, that you have read a story, a story that you have read recently, or an idea that is purely based on your imagination. All right, that's step 1. Think of an idea. Step 2, create a character and setting. Okay, just like the story that we have read just now. So we know the characters, the two friends, Rosie and I, and then we also know the setting, the scenery. It's in the mountains. Okay, step 2, create a character and a setting. Okay, what do you want your main character to be? Will your main character be a child, an adult, or an animal? You can, from this point on, you can decide what you want your character to be. Do you want your main character to be a baby, a kid, or a rabbit, a cat? It is up to you. Okay, for the setting, for the scenery, what do you want the story to be set in? Will the story be set in a park, in a jungle, or in outer space? At this point on, let your imagination run wild with this step. All right. Step 3, moving on. So now that we have, I told you about step 2. Let's continue to step 3, the beginning. Just like the story that we have read earlier, the story also has the beginning. We know the beginning of the story, how the story began. Okay, the beginning. Every story has a beginning, the middle, and an end. What are the characteristics of the main character? What do you want your character to be? What characteristics do you want to give your main character? Do you want your character to be short, tall, or do you want your character to be loyal, brave? Okay, expand your story and set the scene. This is also up to you. Alright, step 4, moving on, the conflict. Also, just like the story that we have read earlier, the most interesting point of this story is the conflict that the two friends experienced after they got lost, right? That's what attracted us more to the story. This is why this step is also important, the conflict. A story without a conflict will be dull and boring. Just like the story earlier on, we never got boring. We want to know what happened. We don't want to know what happens more and more after that. Okay, what happens when a conflict arises? And what would the main character do? Would the main character chicken out? Would the main character face the scary situation head first? Okay, you can even, from this point, step 4, the conflict, you can even introduce a new character. It doesn't have to be about the main character only. That would be boring. You can introduce a new character. You can also give the new character new characteristics that can make the story more interesting. Okay, so now for step 4, so this is how you can spice things up a little bit and make your story more interesting. Okay, moving on, step 5, the turning point. The turning point, or it can be known as the plot twist. Okay, now, so I don't know if you realized, but the story that we have read earlier also has a turning point. So just when we thought that the two friends are going to be lost for quite some time, probably stranded, and probably they will be found the next morning, they got lost for a while until they realized they heard the sound of a helicopter. The helicopter came to save them, right? So that's the turning point. The turning point helps to make the story more interesting. You can do a different spin to the story and surprise the readers. It doesn't have to make sense. Like I said earlier, like step 2, let your imagination run wild with this step. Okay, now we are reaching the end. Step 5, the turning point. Step 6, the end. Now, every story, just like every story has a beginning, the middle, every story also has an end. Right? I think we can all agree that there's nothing more satisfying than a perfect ending. It can be a good or a bad ending, but I know we all prefer a good ending, right? But sometimes a good story doesn't necessarily have a good ending. It can also have a bad ending, and that's okay. Okay, step 6, the end. It's a perfect way to finish a story. What happened to the characters? After all the conflict, after all the struggles that happened to the characters, what happened at the end? What did the characters do? So did the characters got out of this scary situation, or they stayed in this scary situation at the end? What do you want your story to have? What do you want your story? What ending do you want to give your story? Can the readers, now on from the reader's point of view, can the readers learn an important moral value from the lesson? Can the readers learn an important lesson from your story? And for this point, for the end, imagine that you're a reader yourself. So you have read a lot of stories. What do you think that would make the story more interesting? From your point of view, what makes the story interesting? From that mindset, you can improve your narrative essay. Imagine yourself in the shoes of the reader. What do you want? What do you expect from a story? What do you find the story interesting? Okay, that's okay. We have reached by the end of a step-by-step on how to write a good narrative essay. Alright, give a clap to yourself. Okay, now did you copy all the step-by-step in your notebook? Okay, great. Now that, okay, so we are reaching the end of our lesson for today. Now that we have learned together on how to write a narrative essay, for you, I have created a Google Classroom link that I think I have posted in our WhatsApp group, and from the link, I want you to write a short narrative essay, and post it on the link. I will check it. Okay, I will give you, for this task, I will give you the utmost freedom to write a story. Use the step-by-step guide. Use the step-by-step as a guide. So you can write, it's up to you. It can be based on your own experience. It is up to you. It can be based on your own experience, or create a new story based on your own imagination. Let your imagination run wild. I want to read all sorts of stories. I want to get to know all the sorts of characters from your imagination. Okay, so after you have posted your stories, we will read together your stories on our next class. Good luck. Thank you, everyone. That's it for our lesson for today.